just go in the other room and turn it on. Oh, there we go.
Recording is in progress. Okay, thank you. And
hi, everybody. I get to do the short introduction. It's nice to see you all here this evening. We've got 46 people on the call so far out of about 115 now, or 20 or something, that have registered. So perhaps some other people will be coming in as we get going. And so I just want to say, let's see, I think it's my job to say something about Siskiyou Permaculture, which Hazel and myself and Karen Taylor are collaborators in Siskiyou Permaculture since 2008. And we give permaculture courses, and we do design work, and we do consultations. So we also bring you these talks that we've been doing with Hazel. And, you know, for quite a number of years, we've been doing an annual talk around this year, the fall, or sometimes we call it winter storytelling. Hazel's going to give you more background about it, so I'm not going to say anything else about that. But I would encourage you, if you're interested in permaculture and the work of Siskiyou Permaculture, to go to our website at siskioupermaculture.org. And we did create a new website this year, which is a lot more user-friendly than our previous one. If you were having trouble with it in the past, hopefully it's better now. There's lots of resources there. And so I usually like to say a couple of things about Hazel. I mean, usually everybody who comes on these calls are kind of know Hazel already and are friends, but occasionally there's a few of you that don't. And we'll just say that Hazel was one of the original students with Bill Mollison, or actually guest instructor with Bill Mollison from the first time he came to the United States, and has been involved in permaculture ever since, and teaching courses and doing design work. So for over 30 years in Southern Oregon and the West Coast, and places abroad as well on occasion. And Hazel hails from upstate New York, originally from a Quaker family with deep roots of hundreds of years of living in a small village in upstate New York. And I don't know that I really want to say anything else, because Hazel has much to tell you in what we hope will be a wonderful story this evening. So settle in, get comfortable, here we go.
Okay, so are you going to put me on full screen, Karen?
Oh, I forgot. There's one other thing we should say, or maybe Karen wants to do this. Karen, do you want to talk about putting things in the chat?
Sure. I will be monitoring the chat box. So if you have questions or comments, feel free to use the chat. I will try and keep up with Hazel's recommendations of books and post those in the chat if possible. But if I miss one and you know it, feel free to add it. And I guess that's about all I want to say about that. And it's so wonderful to see everybody. I'm very excited. I mean, I missed the in-person, but this is nice.
And if you're thinking about questions and you think you might forget about them, do feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll go through it at the end and look for them and ask Hazel your questions, or give you a chance to at the end.
And just to remind everybody, while Hazel's speaking, make sure you're on mute. So if there's any background noise, it's not distracting. So thank you for that. And Hazel, if you want to see yourself on the big screen.
Please. Then I can make my hand things.
I'm going to explain to you how to do it, because I can't do it for you.
Oh.
If you look up in the right-hand corner, it says View.
View.
And if you drop it, if you check speaker view.
I don't seem to be operating this mouse.
Okay, thank you, Melanie.
There it goes. Up there. Oh, that looks like me. Me and Melanie. Greetings, gathered friends. Tonight, I hope to tell a story. I have 8 pages of notes. Should work. So we're going to start with gratitude. And I want to give a great deal of thanks to all sentient beings, to spirit. And we have 3 main icons we like to thank right away, which are beaver, salmon, and fire, cultural fire. In my people's background, everything has spirit. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight is spirit. So normally to do proper gratitude, you need to go down a list. It takes about a week. But I think I'm hopefully covered it with my big generalities about everything with spirit. Great gratitude for all the energies, for the universe. We are at home in the universe. We belong here. We're part of it. And we're part of it in a very special way. So I have a great deal of gratitude for that, of feeling connected to place. And, you know, I will take you back a little bit to the coming together in a big room and then coming up with all the different sounds of the different wild animals that are totems for us, and having a great chorus of wild animal sounds to the best of our human ability. So imagine it just sort of like a background chorus of all sentient beings chiming in, giggling probably, laughing, maybe sparkling a little bit. So gratitude, immense, endless gratitude. Thank you, Spirit. As Melanie said, I've been doing these public storytellings since the mid-90s in Ashland and at some conferences. And so some of you have seen me in different places. And tonight, what we're talking about, the re-enchantment of the world, is tied into 2 previous talks that I gave especially. One of them was in 2016, the state of the bioregion. And there I talked about Abrams, the spell of the sensuous, and the horizons and the ecstatic feelings we have facing the mystery of horizons, of time, of the ridge, the edge of the sky, of the earth under us, and everything that's down there, and of the air that touches us and speaks to us. So thank you for grounding us in those senses, the spell of the sensuous. And tonight, I'm going to start with hares. You might have noticed. Hares have certain characteristics. They're referred to as tricksters, creator tricksters, and they are edge creatures. They are at the crepuscular hours. They leap and dance at the approach of storms. And they are not rabbits. Mm-mm. They are hares. Different. So, one day in the spring, after the full moon, near the equinox, there was a racket on my front porch. And I stepped out, see what the racket was, and there was a young toddler hare on my porch. And it had floppy feet, and it was like running up to me and running away and like, let's play, let's play. And I'm like, is this really happening? What? Are you the Easter hare? Are you, what? I was amazed. I mean, just like, what? And so I went, well, that was a one-off. Oh my gosh, was I wrong? So in the next week or few days, this hare comes by again, and I can always tell it's him because he's floppy-footed. And he comes by with maybe a sibling and says, hey, you got to go visit Hazel. Hazel's kind of fun. We could go play with Hazel. And the other hare is like, well, I don't know about this. But I became friends with this young hare and kind of watched him, I think, get stronger and more graceful and grow up. And then one day, have I got it here? Oh, yes. I was sitting in my palapa, open shade house, and I was just minding my own business, maybe reading, and out from behind my big red rain barrel stepped a giant hare, 3 foot tall, maybe taller. And it was only like 6 foot from me. And I looked over and I immediately said, I do not eat hares. Nope, not me. Mm-mm. Don't eat them. Nope, no worries. Mm-mm. I'm good. Mm. And this hare opened its big brown eyes, looked me over, and then walked past me silently. And I'm just sitting there. Wonder what that was. Well, more on that in a moment, but my first book tonight will be The Keeper of the Game, Calvin Luther Martin. And he talks in there about spirit animals that are the keepers of the game. And when you encounter these keepers, you're being lobbied, guided, enlightened, enchanted, perhaps. And so, having already read the book, I was like, oh, that must have been one of those. Whoa. So, the story goes on. Not too long after that, after I had seen the hare a few times and kind of got used to having a hare in my life, one day we started clearing a bunch of brush and we had a burn pile going, and the hare comes up from the south. Then the hare comes up from the west. Then the hare comes from the north with a partner. And I'm like, perhaps we shouldn't cut any more brush today. Maybe we've done enough. So I was like getting used to this, you know, strange stuff happening with hairs. All right, I'll keep going here. Perhaps some of you know there's something called the human shadow, and that predators know that humans will spook little birds or create a sort of a dome of attention, and the predators will like work the edge of that. And so one day I came down to my boat barn, and as I came down the trail, there was a screech. And I got down and talked to my friend and wished her happy travels. And off she went. And I went back up my trail, and my hair was eviscerated, dead in the middle of the trail. And there was a big red-tailed hawk up in the tree. And I'm like, was it smart of you to follow me around? So I stepped very carefully around the carcass and watched it over the next month as all kinds of people had a little bit of that hair, until every bit of it, every bit of fur, everything was gone. You know, the world is complicated. There's a lot going on. So I'm like trying to convince some of my best friends that I had seen a giant hair. And there's beginning to be a sort of a joke in the community. Hazel and the giant hairs. So then my friend Miku shows up and is doing her morning yoga and is sitting very quietly in front of the boat barn, and she's two giant hares right across the valley. And she says, they were as big as small deer. And I was like, back up. And Miku too. Okay. Well, now, friends of mine have looked this up, and there are no hairs that big. You can read it in Wikipedia or something. It doesn't exist. And so I'm like, I've got backup. So, you know, the story just gets more enchanting. It's that edge thing, you know? So then, just this year, I'm sitting having a tailgate tea with a friend of mine, Kai, and her dog, Gray. And Kai is sitting in one of my three-legged suicide chairs. And I'm sitting across from her, proper pandemic distancing, and a hare runs out from under my truck, runs under Kai's chair, and across her sleeping dog. Oh my gosh. I mean, for the next few days while they were visiting, I was giving this dog an awful lot of grief about being hare roadkill. Like, dude, did you even notice? And the hare was kind of casual. It strode around the corner, no big hurry. What's with you guys? And I was like, trickster. Okay then. And then I kind of thought a tiny bit rationally and said, I'll bet there's pups up gulch, and that hare put on a show to distract us. Because years before, I had gone up my gulch, up through the meadows, and there was the hare right in my face. And I took another step, and there was his partner, and she was so pregnant, she was dragging her belly on the ground. And I was like, they show me this? This is this is my gift from the hares. I'm privileged to experience all these things. This is astounding. I'm enchanted. The world is enchanting. This is good news. I was like, okay, great. Now, being that I read books and I write and I think about things, I came up with this list of things to say, which is that it's good to understand, in spite of noises in the background, that chaos and complications are normal. I mean, not complications, complexity. Complexity is the real world. It's big, it's crazy, and we're just humans, and we're just another player. We're here experiencing this. So let's not forget these things, which I think these hair stories I just told you kind of back up. So one thing is things that are missing cannot be found by calculation. You can't go about figuring out what is missing. You need to know what is missing from traditional ecological knowledge and wisdom, stories. So that's kind of important. We can't just figure out what is missing. We need to know. Thus, we need culture. Powerfully real experiences defy explanation. You got a problem with that? Anybody got a problem with that? Not me. Explanations? I'll take the experience. Thank you. Back to my point on complexity. Complexity does not yield to complications. And complications are things that humans do to try to deal with complexity. So complexity doesn't yield to complications. It's like not impressed. Just wanted to get that straight, okay? All right, and edge effects, these things we can't explain that we see out of the corner of our eye that we can't quite believe just happened are actually show us the scope of chaos, of Gaia, how big it is, that these emergent properties of complexity tease us. They're like making fun at us. They're like toying with us. These emergent properties, they just like, did you notice? Yeah. Okay, so wisdom rises naturally from experience and is confirmed by our ancestral inheritance. This stuff is all natural. We're part of it. Just checking. Stories hold connections so that complex symbolic thought tied to the greater mind is triggered wonderfully, gifting us with confirmation of wild integrity. Yeah, we are small but useful. And just to give credit where credit is due, any wild child knows all this. Hopefully you were there once. You were that wild child. Okay. Now I'm going to do the book review section, a little discussion of people who have tried to talk about enchantment of the world and what happened. And these are book reports, okay? And then at the end, we'll get to Wagner County. Yeah, we're going to slip right over there through the ethers, through the veils into Wagner County. But first, I'm going to start with James William Gibson, A Re-enchanted World, 2009. And I found this on my friend Doug's stack. I was like, what? Who? Re-enchantment? Can I borrow this book? Okay, thank you. It turns out that his angle is quite interesting. What he's kind of reviewing is eco-warriors, politics, policy. And he's like going through the history of Earth Day and ecological movement and the rise of the American Indian movement and hippies and resistance. And he says all of that kind of got shut down by the neoconservatives. And, you know, there was kind of like a war against the earth for a while. That was kind of a reactionary backlash. And now things are kind of getting better, even though we kind of lost the first phase. And so he goes on. Short version. And I want to say that James Gibson reaches for political change and policy pushed by individuals' interests. So I'm going to call out hyper-individualism here, and I'm going to suggest patriarchal, linear, kind of, I'll get back to that again. I'll find the word. So I wasn't too impressed. But if you want to read the history and the thread of all this stuff, tree sitters and Luna and all that, he got it down. He was teaching at California State University, Long Beach when he did this. I'm going to give you the short reviews now because I think I might move through them faster than that. But I wanted to show you an example of a book that was claimed to talking about enchantment, and I'm not so sure. The next person we're going to talk about is Morris Berman, who wrote 3 books that I really enjoyed. The Re-enchantment of the World, Coming into Our Senses, and Nomadic God. And that was from 1981 to the early 90s, those 3 books. And he's a sociological historian and really likes going to the edges and looking at things like William Reich and Blake and others and metaphysics, and showing that somehow things went wrong when we got linear and we started doing reductive thinking and simplification and sort of the world consciousness, logic, that disenchanted the world. And now we're suffering because we can't even think straight. We kind of need enchantment. Well, that's the theme tonight, right? So Morris Berman orients us. He's teaching us things. He's showing us the threads. He's mapping this out. And I appreciate that. And then he locates us in the present, what we're up against. So thank you, Morris Berman. And then Paul Shepard, who, may he rest in peace. Paul Shepard is considered to be profoundly radical. I like that phrase. Profound means deep, and radical means roots. So deep roots. And the book that I read most recently of Paul Shepard was The Tender Carnivore and the Sacred Game. And he wrote it in 1973. And it's kind of strange because it's severely masculinist and talks about hunting. He calls it syngetics, Cyngetics, something like that. But he's done his homework. He's looked into the evolutionary biology of the human species. And everybody in here kind of keeps referring back to Gary Snyder and Gary Snyder's point about the Pleistocene, that we should measure sanity through our Pleistocene lenses, that we've kind of lost track of things. Things have been downhill for the last 20, 30,000 years. But Paul Shepard is suggesting there are ways to move forward. And the big way that he does this is in his probably most famous, and he thought his most important book, which is Nature in Madness. And all of this has to do with children. I mentioned it before, didn't I? Well, there's something called continuum parenting and traditional child raising. And my partner, Elizabeth, and I were raised as wild children in the mountains in the Adirondacks. So we can relate to some of the stuff he's saying. He basically says children should be held, faced out, involved in everything, over the shoulder, present, but held for maybe the first 3 years. Total safety. But then about 3, they're walking. And if we can let them, we should give them direct nature. Go for it, kid. And in fact, Elizabeth and I got a lot of that in our separate families of, okay, kid, you're 4 years old, out to the woods, don't cross any streets. When you need to come home, stand on the other side of the street and yell, and mom will come and get you and help you across the street. Mud, stings, scratches, slugs, trees, holes in the ground, slimy things, dead leaves, squirrels, nuts. If we're able to experience these things directly without words, we awaken our archetypal, symbolic, co-evolved, horticultural, wild brain. And Paul Shepard says, you haven't got a full deck of cards unless you've had full nature immersion, because you need to kind of awaken and fill all those archetypal essences of nature, of spirit. And then once you get all that, then you start to be able to have intuition, and you start noticing those edge effects I was talking about earlier. Those things kind of come into being. And in linguists and Ivan Illich and others talk about this, we don't think in words. We don't dream in words. Only when we're coming back into consciousness, and waking up, do we start having words involved. We think in symbols. We dream in symbols. It's semi-unconscious. It's intuition, and it's directly connected to the greater mind, to spirit in all beings. And that can cheer us up. Oh, we're connected. Mm-hmm. So the next book that I just read is Sand Talk out of Australia. And it's Tyson Yunkaporta. And he has Aboriginal connections and is also a professor and writes books. And he wrote a good book, Sand Talk. And he makes the point that there is an indigenous land-based epistemology. And it's symbolic and has to do with interconnection. And so he kind of boils it down, and I'll find those notes pretty soon here. Buried. Oh yes, here it is. Diversify, connect, interact, and adapt. With any luck, we'll return to that in a moment. But I now want to move on to some different books, because I thought I would try to make this point, which you've seen me try to do before, which is the boys. Masculinity and patriarchy have been reinforced so hard that the work that needs to be done seems to be needed to be done by the boys. Well, it's not that easy. And yet we see these four men that I just mentioned, these authors, working that kind of linear, let's figure this out. Maybe if we were better educated, we could have a discussion. Well, the women writers apparently have a different idea. So I'm going to start with If Women Rose Up Rooted, Sharon Blackie. And she makes the point in more symbolic terms about the quest and about women being of the earth, grounded in the earth. And she has a great time telling us these stories, and mostly the outer lunatic fringe, the Gaelic edges of the northwestern European island chains. And so her stories are centered in earthiness. She's ready for enchantment. It helps her. She's happy to have that opportunity to get connected. It solves a bunch of relationship problems she's having. She moves a certain amount, but is trying to get grounded. So I highly recommend If Women Rose Up Rooted. And then I'll mention Robin Wall Kimmerer, who shows complexity in relationships, reveals ecological culture, and kind of does it through storytelling and invites us into the fabric. I was enchanted. Very much enjoyed reading it. Braiding Sweetgrass. And lastly, I want to mention Sarah Maitland, From the Forest, talking about origins of fairy tales and stories of the forest and what the forest has meant to our European ancestors and how weird it is, some of the parts of it that don't quite connect deep and long into the long old story. So she's a good one to try to understand and to read, because she visits the old forests. She goes into the old trees. She tries to understand what our ancestors went through during the removals, when our enchanted understanding of the world was taken from us. We were taken from the world. Most of us of European heritage were removed. We were colonized, and then we became colonizers. So there's a big story there. Not going to spend all night on that, but there's some clues. And I'll go on that there are things that cis men might benefit from, reorientation and passage through education. But, they can be very entertainingly funny to think that they can argue up a new way. Good luck with that, boys. We must instead step out of the goal obsession and linear reductionist reason and notice the clues that complexity is giving us and be thrilled by those clues, because complications do not placate complexity. Diversify, connect, interact, and adapt. Thank you, Tyson. Very handy. Moving along. All right, I think we did good enough with Morris Berman. I think we did good enough with Paul Shepard. Paul Shepard's a good example of someone you have to struggle to read, but it sure is worthwhile. And he's not as well known as a lot of other people like Gary Snyder and others. People lose respect when they go orthogonal, when they go sideways, when they move into the crepuscular, the edges. It's like, oh, those people are crazy. They've stepped out. Yeah. Shouldn't we? Just asking. So here, I love this part of it though. There are mosaics of the older ways embedded in modern culture. I suggest we embellish the embeddedments, the embedded. Let's embellish the embedded. Let's give it some sparkle. Because we still have it. It's there. And wild animals tell us, they give us that feedback. These moments we have, these childlike moments we have, that's confirmation. Sure helps me, cheers me right up, even though I can't explain any of it, right? So, an archetypal ecology, a paraprimitive solution. That's a quote from Paul Shepard. An archetypal ecology, a paraprimitive solution. Okay. Professors. All right, okay. I was only a college instructor. Maybe I've got a chip on my shoulder. Sand talk, I suggest you take a walk with Tyson and see how it goes. But he sure kind of like makes it into tables and tries to help white people. He's really trying. And I hope it's working for some. I thought it was very confirming to read his book. I had a good time. It was a good read. Why are we here? He asks. We are here because we're custodians. Humans are tenders. We have work to do, but we're kind of not great at it unless we've got culture of place and the long story and can connect through these veils and these dimensions. But that's our job. We're the custodians. We have some things to take care of. And he asks, how should we live? Not by ourselves in modern electronic apartments. We need to live in community. We need to live in clan structure. and I'm going to get back to that. Icons and totems. How can we bridge to the other? How can we listen to the other? Good stuff. But we need to live in community and accept feedback so that we can connect, adapt. What will happen when we die? The storylines will go on. Our job is to carry the storylines forwards. Remember what I said earlier, so that we remember what is missing. And there is a great deal missing right now. Connect, diversify, interact, adapt. Thank you, Tyson. Good stuff. Oh, yes. And my daughter, Hanya, wants to say, like a child, find the magic. Be enchanted. Become enchanting. Part of the point that Sarah Maitland makes in From the Forest is that the idea of enchantment in the fairy tales is very narrow and very linear and it's more like enchanted spells. It's more like things that are done. It's like logical, and it's not right. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about becoming enchanted, being put under a spell. I'm talking about the world is enchanting. Step into it. It's big. It's huge. We never left it. All we need to do is notice. Okay, that's pretty much what I can do with that, I think. You know, there's a lot of thinking that we can do, and it will help us a little bit to make the transition and to come into the story, the long story, and to carry the song lines forward, and to understand how intimately we are part of place. We're not separate from place, although we have been separated from place. We ourselves inevitably are there. So we can notice that. Okay, so in the series of stories I've been telling, I've made up a new place called Wagner County. A year ago, I told the story about how Wagner County came into being at the collapse of globalism, supply chains. And now I want to talk about how long time later, when we actually live in Wagner County, in small villages, in community, and most of the world is wild, we have learned how to nurture enchantment. And first, we understand how important it is for the children to be reinforced in the reality that they're telling us about, that we should not be neglecting. And to try to have these children help us to keep our own beauty, antennae well-tuned. So in our villages, we live in clans, and our clans are totem clans: raven, beaver, wolf, pine tree. And as a culture of humans, we try to understand how enchanted things are by taking on a larger identity, a more inclusive identity, being part of a great wholeness of place. And the way we practice these things are through reinforcement of all the senses, the stories heard, the icons we see in the decorations of our houses and the clothing we wear, the songs that are sung and that we know how to sing, the wild foods we have tasted, so strong. What memories? What was that taste? Oh, the cold water we immerse ourselves in that heightens our senses, the shock of it. Where are our boundaries? Who are we? All of this is enforced by children's pilgrimages, all species parades, costumes, perhaps, what do they call that? When they draw on your skin? Oh yeah, totemic markings. So when you meet someone who's a stranger, who's not from your village, you have a pretty good idea who they are, what they're wearing, what icons they're showing. And so you have a way to bridge, a way to have a conversation. We also reinforce enchantment and being open to enchantment through rites of passage, vision quests, long treks into the wilderness, time spent with our elders, especially the grandparent, grandchild, beautiful wonder place, which of course I'm completely enamored with at this point in my life. And so we end up through all of this reinforcement, through this cultural living, through the seasons of the year, through the celebrations, through the reinforcement over and over again, we're open. We're open to the wonder of the world. And we're absolutely ready to listen to the children and to help them to come into the wild, into the practice of the wild. And this ends up helping us take our custodial duties gladly, with great interest, appreciating the wonderful gifts, the wondrous gifts. We're willing to play along. We're rolling with the punches and getting back up with a smile on our face. We're learning to be defensive. We're learning to be appreciative. We're learning to notice. We're learning to be gentle. We're learning friendly persuasion. We're learning direct power and the carefulness with it. And we are submitting to community review. Turn around. Is there a clown following you? Is everybody laughing? Are you okay with that? Might be good. No harm intended. But you would perhaps just being a bit silly. Outside of what we know to be longer lasting, deeper. So clowns, lots of cultures to clown, super important. Which brings me back to the hare, right? The trickster. All these tricks. What are those tricks about? Invitations to wonder. Falling right into it. Distracted, open, memory filled. We can smell certain things. We can feel certain things. There's a taste in our mouth. There's something, there's some sound. There's a breeze that just came out of nowhere. Oh my gosh, I'm part of this. What a wonder. We are being held closely. Move from this peace at wonder. Be strong, knowing how big it all is, and that we have these parts to take part in. I hope we can move forward in time and imagine Wagner County, as well as we can go back into these books and see what happened in the last 10,000 years. And perhaps we can find our Pleistocene self again. And then we might make good decisions when we're working in the wild, because there's a lot of repair to be done. There's a lot of opportunity in the wild. The return of beaver, the masses of salmon running up the river, the cool cultural burns under the forest canopies, the abundance, resilience. So this last page of my notes, I was working on this story, and around about 3 a.m., you know, some of you who are my age, that 3 a.m. thing, I have a notebook next to my pillow. So some wisdom was delivered, and I want to go down through this list of wisdom just to reinforce my purpose in enchanting you, in bringing stories to you. So first, like I just said, move from a place of peace, strength, calmness. When you're sitting in nature and something absolutely outrageous happens, the most important thing you can do is be utterly cool. center. Breathe gently. Pay attention. So I was with a friend who wanted desperately to go on a long walk with me, a walk about the Ashland watershed boundary. And on the second night, we were at a wild camp, and two sharp-shinned hawks, a female and a male. And if you know sharp-shins, they're entirely different. The male looks like a black and white falcon, and the female looks like a short-winged boodio with a long tail. It's a whole different gig and whole different sizes. And so they were like hanging out with us in the snag where we were sitting out in the meadow with our tiny little charcoal stove, cooking up some noodles or something. And then we moved to our camps under these trees where we found just enough flat ground, and the female sharpshin moved right in. And I was like, oh, hungry. So I put some dried salmon out in a Sierra cup, and just as gently and carefully as I could. And the sharpshin moved right in, understood entirely what was going on, but my friend was full of fear. And the first thing he did was raise up his iPhone and try to film it. He wanted to get some technology in between him and this hawk that was like right there with us. And I was like, chill, dude, chill. Even though the hawk was scared off, I felt that it was a blessing. And the next day, on our way down to the trailhead, I noticed there they were. They were following us, flying with us all day to the trailhead, full of gratitude that we would be as kind as we were able to be. Thank you. So, big wisdom. Stay calm. Do not be afraid. Pay attention. Maybe you'll notice something. Magic is not evil manipulation by devils. It is emergent relationships. Oh, these things are connected? And there's a whole bunch of power around it? Oh, I think the room's filling with light. This is an amazing experience. It's magic. Enchanted is not hypnotized, glamored. We're all glamored by beauty. Beauty is glamorous. Being glamored is not necessarily a problem unless you don't notice you're being glamored. I'm just trying. Searching for wisdom. Humans accepting relative diminishment gladly, and thus falling into the buzz, the flow, the light, the flight, the embodiment, the experience. Enchantment never left. Moderns stepped out. Enchantment is the nature of the universe. Just the way it is. Distraction. Distraction. I'm distractioned. I'm distracted by the glamour. It challenges industriousness. But it births insight and humility so that you might actually make good decisions. You might actually have perfect timing. You might be able to embellish, magnify, surf, dance, become, identify with, understand, come into relationship. Intuitions, I'm going to repeat this. I'm going to repeat what I said earlier in a different way. Intuitions emerge from symbolic, artful dreams. We get messages and we can talk back and we can dialogue. Imitate the dance to feel the connections. When we do the deer dance, we want to become deer. And John Seed and Joanna Macy with the Council of All Beings have people who go into enchantment so that they can act as channels to speak for the wild, to bridge to the humans, to those humans who don't have the direct symbolic communication. We can help. We can learn to do certain dances. We can dance the wild. And it will help us. It will help others. It's much to learn. Be good if you had culture, good if you had feedback. Elders, a long story. Just repeating. Understanding without words allows leadings. That's my Quaker background. The leading arises. The wish arises. Where did it come from? Don't worry about it. Pay attention. What does it feel like? Are you in your body? Act without thinking and feel amazed. How did I do that? How did I just tell this story? What happened to me? There was a story in these notes. I'm enchanted. I'm so glad that nature bosses me around. I like to tell my interns, we are the pets. Wildness is in charge. Join the dance. Open your senses. Be enchanted. Because this is what we need to do the work, to do the healing, to come back into our custodial responsibilities. Perhaps our first and foremost responsibility is to notice the enchantment. That's my story for tonight. And perhaps there'll be some comments and questions, and I can dig deeper into my notes or not, but I feel pretty good about it. It was a decent story. Pretty fresh. And I'm already imagining being in the woods. I'm looking forward to the next week and a half with my visitors who are going to be working with me. And perhaps the hare will show up and do something absolutely outrageous. And we will be enchanted. Thank you, friends. Blessings on all sentient beings. Enlightenment to all. The universe is our home. Now, if I knew how to take me off, thank you, Karen. If I knew how to take me off of the big screen again, might be better for the questions. I do not know how to use this mouse. Ah, here it goes. I'm getting there. View.
Yeah, go to gallery view, Hazel.
So if
Go to gallery view.
Yes.
Right there.
but also, Karen, if we're unmuting people when they talk, they'll pop up.
All right. I'm now just one of the tessellated tiles. But I have a rainbow. Check it out. I got a rainbow. All right. Did I distract everyone so much that did you get any notes, Karen?
There's some comments.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Keep going. This was incredible, Hazel. Thank you. And woohoo, Hazel.
Yeah. Well, thanks to my culture, thanks to my Adirondack upbringing, and my parents were both awesome storytellers. I bring you that gift. There it is. Yeah. Anything else, Karen?
I could say something, Hazel.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
You don't know me, but you know my wife, Connie. She took.
I know. I recognize Connie. Yeah.
Hi. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Connie.
Connie and I hooked up 6 years ago. We've been married 5.
Oh.
And
well, good.
I lived for most of my life, I guess, up north in British Columbia.
Ah.
And in searching for a name for my landscape company, I landed on Enchant. Enchant Landscapes. And over the years, I've been attracted to that word. It wasn't an easy word to use when I stepped up to conservative redneck businesses saying, I want this put on my account. Yes, enchant, not enchanting, not enchantment, enchant. But I just wondered if you had any words to say about helping the linear word mind understand enchant. And the closest I've ever come was in listening to a man named John O'Donoghue describe looking out from the west of Ireland and to across the coast and the ocean. And I interpreted what he said as that enchantment was something that was between the magic in himself and the magic in the land. And I thought, wow, that finally, I think I have some words to put to that concept of enchantment, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Glue, it's the glue. Enchantment is the glue that holds us all together. Cultures do chanting, repeating the same words over and over again. They do circle dances. And amazing things happen during circle dances. The Quakers went to the other extreme and got entirely rid of words and went into deep silence. So yeah, cultures have had ways to use words as not words, as symbols, as music, as glue, as connectivity. And there's different ways to do that. And it kind of helps the brain to break out of ruts of too much linear thinking or something. These practices are important. And there's lots of evidence, cave paintings, that humans have been doing these ritualistic practices for a long time. And perhaps in part because we're an imperfectly evolved species, just like all the other species, and we're trying. And culture is a special tool that humans have to break through some of these veils and touch across that gulf to find the glue. Because when we do find that connection, as you so well put it, it helps us. It's healing. You can feel it. It's a sense of happiness and comfort, and at best, it stops your thinking and you become present. You're centered. You're present. You start noticing things. I keep pushing this word, noticing. And that it was reinforced for me reading The Mushroom at the End of the World, Professor Tsing. She did a great job about noticing in patches, translating between patches and noticing connections and things. So, I went off sideways a little bit, but thanks. Nice to see you, Connie.
Thank you, Hazel.
Yeah. Anyone else? Comments or questions?
I'll give a quick comment. I just want to say it was just amazing to hear you speak, and you look so gorgeous with your white hair and the rainbow, and just had me cracking up half the time and scribbling notes the other half. And I just am so thankful that you did this for us. Thank you.
Rock and roll. Yeah. Here we are. We're in it, folks. It's all around us. Double and triple rainbows. Oh, yeah. Okay. I see a tile that's labeled stevia, but there's like 6 people in there or something. It's like a crowd. Wow. That's enchanting. No, sorry. Oh yeah. Good. All right. We've got our others, our animals, our others. That's good. Our familiars. Familiars are an experience of enchantment. Yeah. Hello. Hi there. A little bit of wildness. Oh,
there's a few.
I know who that is. That's Scout. Looks like Scout. Okay.
There's a question, and there's some more comments that I would like to share with you.
All right.
Payush says, so lovely. It was enchanting. And,
thank you, Payush.
And Miku says hi and sends her love. She wasn't able to participate because of her new job.
Oof. But I need her to write an affidavit about giant hairs. No, sorry.
And Beautiful. Thanks for adding that, Rod. So, and then there's a question. So, Hazel, do you have any recommendations or resources where we can learn more about the culture of place?
Barry Lopez, Oregon writer who died last year. I just got his book Horizons, but I haven't read it yet. I'm kind of like absorbing it while I sleep. Common Ground is a book of his about terms of place. Gary Snyder, Zen Buddhism. There's a lot. Place never escaped. We never escaped place. There's threads of it. And there's wonderful Robinson Jeffers. There's poets. I was going to mention when Rod asked this great question about poetry, about taking words and making them into music and without direct meaning, allowing them to become symbols in and of themselves. And so all the poetry in my life that I've loved has really helped me. And traditional stories, here in Dragonfly River, Tom Doty, who also passed away last year, wrote a book, Doty Meets Coyote. And he tells stories of place that are local, that are here on Dragonflies River. And so when you can find books like that of your place, it's wonderful. And Henry David Thoreau, Sand County Almanac, what's his name? God, I'm forgetting his name right now. There's some wonderful classics that have celebrated place. So there's lots of material, that I've enjoyed. Karen?
Comment. Thank you. I happened to be listening to Barry Lopez Horizons before coming to this event.
It's as good as I think it is. I think it is. Yeah. I'm looking forward. When I get a break, I'm going to read that next. Yes. Okay. Anything else? We're doing okay?
Hazel, I would love to hear if you have any project updates or life updates that you feel excited about sharing with us, other than the airs, which was lovely to hear about.
Am I supposed to mention the book, Karen? So I completed a manuscript and in a very witchy way got connected to a publisher who swallowed it whole like it was candy. And now I've been working full-time as well as courses and internship. So please send me stamina, glitter. I had some good girlfriends who came by and sprinkled fairy dust on my manuscript. I think it worked. Yeah, I think this fairy dust actually did the thing. So it's now looks like it's going to come out about a year from now. But it's in the works, the social forestry workbook. And it's got great, crazy stories in it. Yeah. Thanks for your help, Tracy, in the past on book things. It was very useful. Let's remember our dear friend, the One Straw Revolution.
Larry Korn.
Larry, yeah. In traditional societies, you do not refer to people directly by name. You refer to them by obliquely. my brother with the funny hat, things like that. So that's just an excuse for my memory problems. But I like it. Nice finesse, Oh, our friend, the one that wears all the colors. Yeah, that one. Yeah. So I got a lot of help and fairy dust. So I appreciate all of it. And now I need to really pull it off. But I have a great crew backing me up. This is the good news. Artists and photographers. So good stuff. Okay. Did I hear somebody asking a question?
Hi, Hazel. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wonder how language plays into this. I have the feeling that English is, the Anglo-Saxons are raiders. They have a kind of objectified language, and are we being trapped by our English language? Do we need to relearn our old languages, Brythonic languages?
Hi, David. Great. Good to see your face. I have met you before, yeah. And I heard a wonderful podcast that you did long ago, but I won't go into that. Yes, I think that English has been oversimplified and turned into a commercial language. And it's atomized. And even the sentence structure has become too linear. Most indigenous languages of people who are actually working on the land or in close contact with wonder are phraseologies. They're not vocabularies. They're not individual words that can just be used however. So this is kind of a piece of work to learn to speak in phrases, because in traditional cultures, phrases refer to stories. When you use a phrase and you're in a culture, everyone in the room knows you're referring to this epic story because you just said, "Walk in the light, friend." And I heard a lot of this in my Quaker background. And my Quaker background also had more pronouns. It had more structure left in the language that has been stripped out in modern American English. So there's a lot around the English language itself that we can do better with. And I think there's some emergent stuff, although it's kind of beyond me, but the rhythm and the sounds of rap, of the exuberance on the street under all the oppression and all the craziness is still, there's something there, So English is morphing. And there are a lot of Creole languages that take English and mix it with something else, and it gets creative. And so I'm just going down a checklist here because I'm thrilled by these thoughts. I've always enjoyed that. And I didn't mention Robert Graves much, but 50 years ago, I got into the White Goddess deeply. And he collected fragments, and he tried to show us that our so-called alphabet is actually a symbolic repertoire. The trees and the animals and the stories and the epics that are associated with each of the trees as a mnemonic device. So another big part of this is memorization. I mean, here I am doing this modern storytelling from notes, but my friend Gwian, my brother Gwian, who taught me a great deal about storytelling, he memorized it all. He practiced and practiced and practiced. I just get up and do it. And so there is a lot about memorizing, and I've heard this from indigenous cultures. You memorize the epics exactly right. You go through a training so that you get the inflections, the gestures, the tones, the texture. You get all of that right, because that's where the things that are missing are being held. in those stories. So it's so important. The oral tradition, oral literature, storytelling is modern storytelling is perhaps a sort of a remnant of epic stories that are hard for us to imagine, that take days to tell. And during the winter, in a cave or a tent, you had time for these stories. They went on and on. So you really triggered me there, David. I went off on a roll, but I hope that helps. Our language itself is enchanted. We just need to notice and feel it when it moves us. Hopefully I pulled some of that off tonight.
Yeah. Hi, Hazel. This is Kitty, David's wife.
Aha.
You and I have met. Just remember me, I met in Asilama. We met a few times in the conversion there.
You're really broken up. I can just barely understand you.
There's also a question in the chat.
Yeah, from our friend who was just speaking.
Sorry, we couldn't connected. Our signal just died. But Hazel, I wanted to say thank you so much. Many gratitudes to you for talking about enchantment.
My pleasure, of course.
Yes, I have been thinking about enchantment a lot recently, especially with the difficulties we're going through, with everything going on in the crazy world. And as I get older, that young spirit still is part of me, and I get really excited.
Yes. Thank God for my grandchildren, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And never having lost that childlike wonder.
Yeah. And it's so important to keep that spirit and the enchantment and the excitement. It keeps us alive and it keeps us real. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Wonderful. Yes. Lovely. Thank you.
And what you said about the oral storytelling, I've been learning about the bardic schools in Britain, continued almost until into the 12th century. And I read that it was expected bards to know 350 or over 350 poems.
Yeah.
So it's obviously a skill that we have the potential for. So something to reawaken.
I love that story that the poet, the druid, had a staff carved with runes. And even though they ate too many mushrooms and went blind, their tactile feeling of the marks in their walking staff was a mnemonic clue for them. And then when I visit Chinese gardens and there's these thinking stones, and you sit there and you just let your mind go and your fingers go down these marks and your stories come in and thoughts. And so again, using all the senses, but that touching, that how do we do that? And it's called mnemonic architecture. I mean, this is Ivan Illich, ABC especially talks about mnemonic architecture. So the Sacred Grove of Trees, mnemonic architecture, cathedrals, mnemonic architecture, the rune staff of the Druid, mnemonic architecture, help us to remember. But again, it's so hard for us. We're all in this self-improvement jag of hyper-individualism, and I really, really want to be talking about culture. I really, really want to be talking about the we, about the village, about place and culture. And our language just keeps trapping us in this. It sounds like mnemonic architecture is a personal skill that we can learn. No, it's an embedded cultural artifact. It can't happen without culture. You don't just pick it up on the side of the street or buy it through Amazon. Oh, sorry, not supposed to mention that. Free advertising. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, David. Yes, lovely. Hope to speak with you longer sometime. Anything else there, Karen?
Yes, there is a question for you.
Okay.
And this is from Judy. When I encounter deer in the forest, I can easily connect with the enchantment. But when I encounter deer in Ashland, I feel sad for them. What does it mean to enchantment when animals can't access their wild places?
Aren't we living in their wild places? We just plunked a city in it or something. Who is it that's displaced here? Is it us or the deer? I'm a little confused, but I've had magical experiences with deer in town. Now, this is complicated. I tried to make that point in my story, that enchantment is not all ice cream and chocolate cookies. The reason there's so many deer in town is that dogs got chained and little boys had their guns taken away from them. And outside of town, maybe because the grizz is gone and the wolf is gone, there are more mountain lions than there ever have been before. So town is like relatively safe compared to mountain lions. This is all so complex. And so seeing that, understanding, maybe even talking to the deer with that understanding, like, oh, here you are. We're living in the same space now. What's it like for you? Should I plant more roses? They sure do like those roses, yeah. Especially the buds just before they're opened. Yeah, yummy, yummy. There have been marvelous events in Ashland. There was a badger that walked down Mountain Street. There is, I mean, this is complicated. Wildlife, there are coyotes in Central Park. The crows are everywhere. The ravens are everywhere. Things are changing in strange ways. I want to watch. I'm so glad to have seen everything I've seen in my time, and I want to see some more. I want to try to understand this. What is really going on? And it's more, I mean, it's really evident to me living in the woods, how much I get bossed around. But to get in touch with that in town, that's extra Benny, you know, like, oh, the wild animals are here with us. Maybe there's some connections we can make. Maybe this is an opportunity for us. And yeah, it's dangerous, and cars, and you might think it's sad, but maybe not jump to conclusions, maybe understand. And there are, in the wild, there's tending going on by a lot more species than just humans. We have custodial responsibilities, but so do a lot of other animals. So we're working together in a guild of a creation guild of rebirthing the world. They're called Earth Renewal Dances. And the Karuk, the Hupa, and the Yurok have been cooperating in their earth renewal dances for millennia, all based on place. So maybe what we should do is become more wild ourselves and dance in the street and dance the dance of the wolf, the mountain lion, the grizzly bear, the other custodians. Maybe that will bring something up. Maybe we'll learn something that way. I really am intrigued by that, taking on that mask, trying to become other, reaching through. And isn't that what we want to do with our most loved ones? Our families, our children, our lovers. We're wild things. We're reaching across. We're joining together. We're coming into the complexity. It's beyond our understanding. Let's dance, sing, do silly things. Go play in the mud with your grandchildren. Yeah. I highly recommend it. All of the above. Yeah. Yes, Karen? Anything else?
Some comments. So fascinating. And I think that was in response to the vocabulary. We were talking about the language. And listening with all our senses alive. Love that. And really grateful for this response, touching on so much nuance, validating the complicated patterns and formations and noticings and curiosities.
Why not? Might as well. Got something better to do? Lovely. Lovely. This has actually been wonderful for me, even though it's Zoom. I'm glad I can see some faces, some familiar faces. I'm really very full of gratitude for all the energy backup. I feel like I have a human battery here helping me tell this story. And I'm quite enchanted that I can do this with a computer. I'm amazed. It's kind of an interesting thing, isn't it? We're like reaching right through. We're reaching through this machine and connecting, and we can feel it. We can feel those energy lines, those heart chords, right with us. It's astounding. It's amazing. And thus we should be glad. We should be happy that we can pull something off like this. It's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. Toity poiple boys. Those toity poiple boys. A choipin and a boipin, a eating doity worms. Yep. It's those poiple boys. They're the ones. Yeah. Lots of things about eating worms out there. So, okay. Anything else, Karen?
Karen, maybe you should promote our course. Want to promote the permaculture design course?
We're teaching a permaculture design course at the end of February. We haven't done one in person since the beginning of the pandemic. And we teach every other weekend from the end of February to the first weekend in May. And a lot of people on this Zoom call have taken our course, and it's really wonderful, if I can say so myself. So, so yes, if you're interested in joining us, sign up soon so that we know we have enough people to hold it, because we would love to teach it.
We do have a few, but we could use a few more folks. So yeah, and if you want to ask us anything about it, we'd be happy to chat with you about it. Just send us an email or call, give us a call. Be happy to talk to you about it. And are we doing anything else we want to tell them about? Should we? Well, why not? Hazel told you about the book, so I will tell you that there's a good chance we'll be doing a crowdfunding campaign to help support these final steps of preparing the book, because the publisher wants a lot from Hazel, and there's a lot of things that need to be pulled together to actually get that all done and to the press. And so watch for it. You're on our mailing list. We'll be pre-selling the book as part of it, so you can get a book. Yeah.
Okay then.
There is a question about whether the permaculture design course is online, and no, we will be holding this in person in Southern Oregon, Ashland, and probably.
If you really want to take your permaculture design course online, drop us a letter and we'll write you some recommendations.
I at last saw you over there, Marisha, hiding in the in the bushes. I guess the tiles, I couldn't see 100 people at once on the tiles, so I did notice you over there. Hello.
I just turned on my camera. Thank you, Hazel. This was delightful. It's good to see so many friends here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to spend the time with you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Marisha.
Lovely. Okay.
Should we say goodnight?
I'm ready.
It's almost 9 o'clock. It's the witching hour. Well,
you kept me going. Yeah. Thank you, Double Snake.
Hour.
Yeah.
Hazel.
I had a real hard time getting here tonight in the fog, driving in the fog with my bad eye. And so I'm going to crash here tonight and drive out to my internship tomorrow morning early. So don't worry about me this evening. I'm just going to kick back and relax and have a fully supported industrial town experience. Yes. Running hot water. I love to play with it, Yeah. Wow, hot water. Amazing.
That's pretty enchanting.
Be well, friends.
You too.
Go out and hug a tree.
Thank
Yay.
you, everyone, for joining us. Wonderful to see you all.
Good night.
Good night now.
Erin, you could click the end call because I can't.
Good night. Thank you.
There they go. They're disappearing one by one.
I love you so much, Hazel.
Yay. Thank you all. Bye, Shauna. See you again someday.
Bye. Thank you so much. Enchanting.
Yes. There they go. One by one. They're all disappearing. Ta-poof, 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 ka-poof. Amazing to watch this.